Lots of basketball tonight, Mike, especially the Big Ten ACC Challenge underway. Surprisingly, the Big Ten off to a 2-0 lead after getting their tail handed to them in the Dave Gavitt games last week, which was a little surprising. But tonight, of course, Indiana travels to Syracuse, their first tough test of the season, road test. Syracuse is 3-3. Haven't had a great start to the season, but it doesn't matter. You're playing in the Carrier Dome. You're playing against a matchup zone, which they haven't seen. It's just all kinds of newness. Indiana's playing on the road away from the confines of Assembly Hall. So all kinds of things going on here.
Yeah, it's a challenge for them.
And they're a favorite.
Yeah, Syracuse hasn't played well yet. It's not uncommon for Syracuse to take a long time to get its zone together. It's become almost, over the last 8 or 10 years of Jim Boeheim's career, it's become almost routine for them to struggle at various parts of the season as they try to fine-tune that zone, and then they get to March and they start to get it. Or maybe February, and they start to get it, and they start to win the kind of games that they need to win to get into the tournament. I can tell you, they were basically the last team I put in my NCAA tournament bracket for Fox last year. They earned their way in probably in the last week of the season, and they wind up in the Sweet 16. That's not the first time that's happened. Certainly the fact that they played the Indiana game in 2013. That was not a team that had a fabulous regular season, but they got it together late, maybe not quite as late that year. They had some very good players, and they wind up playing the Hoosiers and really doing a number on them with that zone. I know IU fans have some really bad memories of that game and others that they've played against Syracuse. But if you execute against them at this time of year, you can beat it. Iowa did a couple of years ago. This is a team that if you execute, you can do this. And I think that Trace Jackson Davis's ability in this game to move around a little bit more than he used to be a mobile target. I think that can really help IU. They need to get him the ball in dangerous spots, and that includes the block, but more so maybe the middle of the lane so that he can drive it to the block. I think that's where he could really be effective, and where IU would have a chance to gain an advantage over the Orange.
Yeah, here's a daunting statistic. Syracuse hasn't lost in the Carrier Dome as an underdog versus a non-conference opponent since number 1 North Carolina in 1984. Thank you, George Orwell. That is so long ago that it's not even – that's longer ago than Indiana won a national championship.
What I would like to know is how many times in that, 37 years, have they been an underdog at home in the Carrier Dome? I would say it's not been very many.
You would think, though, the ACC that's non-conference.
That's non-conference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of Cornells and Colgates in all of that. And so I don't know that they've been underdog that many times. I'll be curious to see. I think really more so than playing against the zone, this is a game in which I think IU has to be effective on defense. You have to make it a difficult night for Buddy Boeheim. He has not been overwhelming to this point in the season. He came into the year expected to have a great year, and he's been really good in terms of production, but accuracy has not been there. 31% from 3. We're talking about one of the best shooters in the country. So he's taken a lot of shots because he has to take them, because there's no one else to take them right now. They haven't gotten their offense down to a point where they're generating consistently high-level shots. Cole Swider, a great shooter at Villanova. I mean, one of the great front court shooters you could ask for, hitting 27% from three-point range. So you can't let those guys wake up to that tonight. Those guys they're both capable of 40-plus three-point shooting. You can't let them wake up against you, because if you do, it will not be a happy night.
Yeah, Indiana has got to shoot the ball themselves a little bit as well as get Trace Jackson Davis loose. They have been doing that at a decent clip, shooting about 37%, I think, from behind the 3-point line,
Right.
which is starkly different from the last few years for Indiana. They're going to have to do that tonight. But Trace Jackson-Davis has really, his confidence just grows. Of course, he's coming off of a 43-point Simon Scott Assembly Hall record performance in which I don't know what Marshall was thinking. They just let him run wild until they started finally double teaming him in the second half. Mike Woodson even said, he goes, we expected them to double team him from the jump, and they didn't. And he had 22 points at halftime. I'm like, it really took them an entire half and 22 points to realize maybe this guy's an All-American. We should double team him.
Well, Marshall's coaching staff is very analytics based. And I believe that they looked at it and thought we can have a better chance to win this game if we're giving up twos than if we're giving up threes. And that's the way they approach everything with their offense. They believe in the 3-point shot, and it's kind of like baseball now. You believe in the 3-run homer, so you play everything to that. Well, that's kind of what Marshall does, and so for the longest time in that game, they were like, okay, we're gonna do this straight up and play him straight up, and hopefully he misses some. But if we give up threes, we're giving up 50% more points, and that's what the math says. So that's what we're going to do. And as well, when you're a Marshall on the road against Indiana and Trace Jackson-Davis, you're working on who you are as much as you are trying to win the game. You're trying to get good so that you can win in your league. And so they're trying to work on themselves. And if their approach is to single up, they're going to face many Trace Jackson-Davises. There's only one of those. So I think that from that standpoint, they looked at it like, we got to get good at what we do, and we'll worry about, we want to win. They're not tanking, but they're trying to work on becoming great at being Marshall. And so if we happen to face a Trace Jackson-Davis or a Kofi Coburn, we're probably going to have a rough night in that circumstance.
How important is it Xavier Johnson coming over from Pittsburgh has vast experience with playing against Syracuse, only because it's not like it's unbeatable. Obviously, they'd be winning the national championship every year, but it's just different. It's especially when you play in a league so different like the Big Ten, where you're just not going to see that. And it's just such a different defensive set for guys to see.
I think it can be an advantage, absolutely. And if I remember correctly, I think Xavier's had some good games against Syracuse. So I think it's helpful. It helps, especially since he's the point guard. I mean, if he were a power forward, I'm not sure it would matter that much. But because the ball's in his hands, he's got to make decisions. He's got to make sure players get to the right spots. It should be helpful. It'll be a bit of a disappointment if he doesn't have a successful game, because he's gone against Syracuse, and he's gone against Syracuse at times of the year when they have had time to get it together and have their rotations down and know how to play it. He's played against them in February games. I think he's even played them in March games. And so he's going against the Syracuse zone that's still trying to figure it out. He may know it better than some of the guys that are in that lineup. So I think it can be helpful.